episode 298 of the Aggressive Progressive Podcast. You know, he calls it a big, beautiful bill. I call it a big, ugly. Let's start the show.
We are now the defenders of the stronghold of democracy and of equal opportunity.
You and I, as citizens, have the obligation to shape the debates of our time, not only with the votes we cast, but with the voices we lift.
The people are looking for honest answers, not easy answers.
The very word secrecy is repugnant.
Clear leadership.
And we are, as a people,
not false claims and evasiveness and politics as usual.
Opposed to secret society.
But ours was a nation of the ballot, not the bullet.
And a secret procedure.
As a people, we cannot afford to let any group of citizens or any individual citizen live or labor under conditions which are injurious to the common welfare.
Black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, young, old, gay, straight, men, women, folks with disabilities, all pledging allegiance under the same proud flag to this big, bold country that we love. That's what I see. That's the America I know.
Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
Welcome to the Aggressive Progressive Podcast. I am your host, Chris Hahn. I'm at Christopher Hahn on X, Christopher Hahn NY on Instagram, at ChristopherHahn.com. Thanks for liking, rating, reviewing, and subscribing to my podcast. Hope you're enjoying it. Look, the media for the last week has wanted to focus on Joe Biden's, mental capacity when he was president, trying to decide whether or not he'll run. Now the man has been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer. I think the media needs to back off that other story and start looking at things that really matter, like this big, beautiful bill, which I call a big ugly, that Donald Trump is trying to force down our throat. So I hope whatever party you belong to, you're saying a prayer today for former President Joe Biden, who was diagnosed with an aggressive form of colon cancer and is now, contemplating his options. I know that we've had a week or two of Joe Biden, in the news, and what did anybody thinking about running for office in 2028 know, and when did they know it? I know that there's been a lot of talk about that. Look, in some respect, I think that it's right to ask the question, but the amount of attention it's been getting, to me, has been mind-boggling. Yeah, it became very clear to everyone in the party when he debated Donald Trump, and by the way, it was like a year ago, like yesterday, that Joe Biden challenged Donald Trump to that debate that happened in June that basically ended his chances to run for re-election. It became very clear to me and everybody else that he was not going to be our candidate and shouldn't have been our candidate. And yeah, I would imagine that there were a lot of people around him in that presidential bubble that were telling him that he was good to go, and they were wrong. But it's been a week. I mean, I get it. Jake Tapper, who is a huge news personality and a guy who I admire, by the way, and I'm not saying I don't. He has a book out with good reporting about what people knew when they knew it, and calls it Original Sin, and it's getting a lot of play, a lot of attention. But I think that the attention should be placed on the current occupant of the White House, who, while he was overseas, was tweeting about the fact that he thinks that Taylor Swift isn't hot. Think about that for a minute. The president of the United States is commenting on the beauty of a pop star. And granted, she's one of the biggest pop stars in the world. And I went to the Eras Tour concert with my daughters, and it was pretty damn good. Yeah. Something mentally wrong with that. Should we be discussing his mental fitness when he goes overseas and is being feted and feels that it's okay for him to accept a plane as a gift? And I get it. His cabinet was on the morning shows on Sunday trying to clean that up, saying, no. It's a gift to the people of the United States of America. Okay. He says he's not going to put it in his presidential library, but he will, except for it'll be a living exhibit that he will fly around in for the rest of his life. I get it. There's a book out by a very famous author that everybody's talking about. And now I guess everybody who was anywhere near Biden has to, answer what they knew and when they knew it. Okay. I say answer it now. If you're thinking about running for president in 2028, my advice to you is to come clean now. Say, yeah, you know what? This is what I saw. And again, I don't know how you could possibly know if somebody is ready to be, to run a campaign unless you're around them more than just momentarily. Because like if you're the governor of a state and you catch Biden on a good day, you caught him on a good day. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe he has a couple of good hours a day, as some people were saying. And maybe they were scheduling his meetings with senators and governors during those good hours. I got it. I am not a psychologist. But look, again, I talked to people in the White House prior to the debate because I was concerned about an old man like that running for president, just as I am concerned about the old man we have in the White House right now. And they assured me, no, he's fine. He's having some problems communicating, but no, he's fine. They were lying to me, and I will never forget it, and neither should you. But that doesn't mean that the governor of California knew it, or the governor of Michigan, or the governor of Illinois, or the senator from this state, or the senator from that state. They didn't know. It is what it is. He was kept in a bubble, plastic wrapped, and only taken out, for brief appearances. And yeah, many of those appearances did not go well. So, why are we talking about it still? I'm praying for the guy. I think Joe Biden was a great American. I think he served this country well for over 50 years. I think he was a very good and consequential president. And I'm praying that he gets through this difficult chapter in his life. The man has had more pain, more suffering than most people can endure. And he's endured it well. God bless you, Joe Biden. Listen to this. I'll be right back. Welcome back. I am your host, Chris Hahn. I am at Christopher Hahn on X, Christopher Hahn NY on Instagram, and ChristopherHahn.com. Those are my socials if you want to take a look. Watch me on News Nation. I'm on there all the time. And, of course, download the Aggressive Progressive podcast if you're not already doing it, wherever you get your podcasts. You want to check that out. We're really growing. I mean, it's been a great couple of months. So check it out. We had a downward turn right after the election. But over the last 6 weeks or so, there's been a massive pickup. In fact, the month of April was my biggest month of all time. So keep that up. I really do appreciate that. Hope you guys had a good weekend. I attempted to power wash my deck, and I wish that I would have just hired somebody, which I think I'm going to wind up doing anyway. My nephew, my godson, used to do it. He's at college. He's going to be doing a summer internship this summer, so I don't think he'll be having his power washing business, and he was really good at it and had all the toys. I borrowed one of my friend's power washes because we were having a conversation. I'm like, do you know anybody who power washes? And he's like, do it yourself. It's fun. It was not fun. I spent 4 hours just doing the stone work in the backyard around the pool. And I got to tell you, it looks a little better. I mean, there's a lot of lines where you can see I missed spots. I don't know how they do it. I really don't, because, you're power washing and there's a lot of water here, a lot of pressure. And you can't really see after a while what you hit and what you didn't. And that's my big problem here, is that I couldn't see. I'm going to have to go back out and, just erase lines that I that I need to. So anyway, I know that's not what you're listening to me for, but there are people out there who are pros at things, and we should respect their profession. And I do generally respect their profession. And I made the error of thinking I could do it, and I was wrong. I was dead wrong. I mean, some of it looks better than it did when I started, but God, it does not look like the professional job my nephew used to do for me before he went off to college. So anyway, I digress. I just want to just get back to, what we care about in America these days. I want to get back to the conversation about this because, again, I have been, even before I learned of Biden's diagnosis over the weekend, I spent a lot of time thinking about what am I going to talk about this week, both on this and other broadcasts I'm doing. And I kept coming back to this, the politics of distraction in this country, right? The Congress is working on a tax bill, which got shot down by Republicans within the House, right? It wasn't, Democrats weren't going to vote for it. Republicans shot it down. Some Republicans shot it down because they didn't take care of the SALT deduction. Some Republicans shot it down because it raised the debt, and they didn't want to do that, and they were going to stand by their principles. As wrong as I think some of their principles are, that's their principles, and they stood by it. And you can't argue with people, that are standing by their principles. If they're being consistent, I like consistent. Although I do think compromise is important when you're a member of the House. The president's foreign policy trip, the president, shouting down Walmart because they are letting consumers know that their prices are going up because of tariffs, just like he did with Amazon. If the president is so confident that his tariff policy is going to make us rich, the president should stop, scolding businesses that are trying to let consumers know why these prices are going up, right? I think that that's important. I also remember when the Republican Party wanted to butt out of businesses, right? When they didn't want to get in the way of the private sector, and that seems to not be the case here. And one other point, all through this Medicare, Medicaid conversation going on in Washington right now, the Republican Party has two competing things happening. They're trying to say we're going to cut red tape, which, by the way, I think is a good thing. I think there is far too much red tape in both state and local government and federal government right now. And I think that if Trump finds a way to cut red tape, God bless him. You can't cut back on oversight, but you got to cut the red tape. But the one place they're not cutting red tape is if you're poor and you need assistance. In that case, they've got all the red tape in the world for that, right? We're talking about work requirements for people who are at the poverty rate in this country, right? If you're making $15,000 or a year more, you might not even be able to qualify for Medicare. I just think it's just hypocritical, right? We don't want a company building a nuclear power plant to have to wait an extra day for a permit. But if you're poor and you need health care in America, we want to make it harder for you to get it. By the way, they're shortening the window of Obamacare. They're making it harder to get Medicare and Medicaid. The bill that got shot down probably would cut Medicare and Medicaid. In fact, that's what some of the conservatives want, right? Some of the conservatives want deeper cuts to Medicare and Medicaid. But they can't come out and say it. So what are they going to do? They're going to make it harder for you to get it. That's despicable, if you ask me. Despicable. I just hope that, I hope that people see through it. And again, I don't think this bill's going anywhere. I knew it wasn't going anywhere last week when Josh Hawley and I agreed that it shouldn't go anywhere. So how many times am I going to agree with Josh Hawley? But let's not be distracted. There are more important things going on than what happened when Biden decided to drop out. But, again, the media's got, ADD. And I know I talk about the media like I'm not part of it. I think that's that's like something I picked up when I was at Fox. And I know I'm part of it. But I try to tell you the truth every time. Every time. At least the truth as I see it. And if you don't like it, call me out on it. Stay where you are. I'll be right back. I just want to follow up, continue talking about Biden's diagnosis, the media's obsession with what did every Democrat know, when did they know it, and the problems within the Democratic Party and the anger over Biden. I mean, it's so much easier to cover that, right, than everything else that they should be covering. It's just easy, lazy. It's lazy. The tariffs that are impacting our life right now are much more difficult to explain than, Biden may have been mentally impaired during the end of his presidency and probably shouldn't have ran. Yeah, we get that. We all know. We all agree at this point. And he's not running for re-election or election for anything ever again in his life. And now he's been diagnosed with prostate cancer, stage 4 that has spread to his bones. It's not necessarily a death sentence immediately, but it is going to make things very difficult for him going forward. And, a man his age with that diagnosis, it's not, the end is near. I don't like saying that, but that's the fact. I mean, he's going to get the best treatment in the world and he could hold on for a couple of years, but it's going to be a painful couple of years. But the media, even after, this began, still wants to bring up the Jake Tapper book, Original Sin, still wants to talk about it. I was on, after the news broke, I was on News Nation with Chris Cillizza, who, made his bones as a journalist or an opinion writer, I would guess. And I made the point to him that in the election of 2028, I don't believe a single vote will be cast because of what somebody may or may not have known about Joe Biden's capacity to lead or capacity to understand or mental capacity, or did he have Alzheimer's or some sort of dementia, which is what they're claiming. I don't think a single vote will be cast about that. Joe Biden, when it became clear that he could not run for office, did not run for office, right? The Democratic Party got it out. And yeah, was I mad that he waited 3 weeks? Of course I was. Do I think that anybody in 2028 is going to care? No. I mean, if that is the only issue that people are determining their vote on in 2028, I mean, the direction of this country will have greatly shifted, right? Because, right now I feel like things are a little bit off the rails. Not totally off the rails. I'm not going to I'm not an exaggerator. I'm not one of those people who want to come out there and say everything is horrible right now. I think there's a lot of uncertainty right now, a whole lot of uncertainty. And one of the things that has made this country so successful is certainty, right? You invest in this country, you know what you're going to get. Well, there's a reason why Moody's lowered the credit rating in the United States of America. There's a reason for that. Because of uncertainty, because of instability, because of monetary policy that has been, less than sound. I don't know about you, but I like certainty. I like stability. And again, for Chris Cillizza to say that voters are going to care about, what, let's say Gretchen Whitmer is running for president. Gretchen Whitmer was the governor of Michigan. She did not spend hours and hours and hours with Joe Biden. She may have gotten Joe Biden at a good moment. They may have planned his interactions with people like Gretchen Whitmer and others from the outside during good moments. You think that voters are going to say no to Gretchen Whitmer because she said that Joe Biden was fit to be president when she's not a doctor and wasn't around him all the time? From what she saw? I think that once we all saw that he was no longer fit for president, we all said, you're out. But Chris Cillissa and others in the media, they seem to think that that's going to matter in 2028. Again, like if that's something people are voting on, we're in a great place as a country. If that's the issue that's dividing America in 2028, God, I hope it is, because it means everything for the next 3.5 years has gone swimmingly. And we're really happy with everything that's happening. And again, I don't care if that means that Trump has a successful presidency. It means the country's successful. I find it hard to believe that that's what we'll be talking about in 2020. There are going to be bigger fish to fry, and maybe the media better start understanding how to explain those bigger fish. Listen to this. I'll be right back. Welcome back. I am your host, Chris Hahn. I'm at Christopher Hahn on X, Christopher Hahn, NY, Instagram, and ChristopherHahn.com. Those are my socials. Of course, watch me on News Nation. I'm on there a lot. Check me out there. And look, if you're here, if you're listening to me on my podcast, if you're watching me on YouTube, if you're listening to me on the radio, when you go to one of my social media platforms, particularly the Aggressive Progressive Podcast, smash that subscribe button. I hate saying that. It's so ridiculous. Just subscribe, please. Please subscribe. And if you like what you're hearing here, leave me a good review, okay? Because, I've got a lot of haters out there that, hate listen to me and give me a hate review. My reviews are funny. They're either 5 stars or 1 star. So not a lot of 1 stars, but it just, look, you're not supposed to care about these things, but everybody cares about them, okay? I get it. I shouldn't care. I shouldn't read the comments, and I generally don't read the comments. But every once in a while, like everybody else, I get curious about what's in the comments, and I read the comments. So if you want to leave me a good review, even if you just want to rate it, that's great. But whatever you do, subscribe, share it with your friends. And we really have been growing. I mean, we had a month. The month of April was our biggest month of all time. And May is going real well as well. I don't know if it's going to be bigger than April, but it's going in a good direction. So thank you for your patronage to the Aggressive Progressive Podcast and all other mediums that you listen to me in. And I know a lot of you listen to me on conservative radio stations because I'm on a few of those. And I appreciate that patronage as well, especially if you're somebody who isn't inclined to agree with me. If you're a Trump supporter, or maybe you're just a conservative and you're listening to my podcast to try to get a sense for what the other side believes, I think that's a good thing. I do it all the time. I listen to a lot of conservative media to try to understand what conservatives are thinking. Now, I think during the Trump term, it's been hard to gauge. We talked about consistency in the economy. I don't think there's been a lot of consistency from the right over the last, really 8 years. I think the right now is whatever Trump wants it to be. And we could argue around the edges. There might be some people who do have strong ideology and they hold their ground on what they believe in. And there are some of them. And I'm not saying that everybody is just, going to do what Trump says. But for the most part, what I've seen from mainstream conservatives the last 8 years is that they are, at least at this point, 100% in lockstep with Trump. Now, we saw some pushback on the bill. We talked about that. And we've seen more, and maybe there'll be more as his numbers decline. But, the thing about Trump is he's the kind of guy that doesn't let a pitch go by, right? If you go against Trump, especially if you're a Republican, right? Some Democrats he might ignore. I mean, he ignores me sometimes. He's called me out, right? But if you're a Republican and you go against Trump, he calls you out. If you're a business, a big business like Walmart, I mean, Walmart's an institution. It been around. It's in every place in this country for the most part. A lot of working class people shop at Walmart. Walmart's decided that they are going to raise their prices due to tariffs. Trump has been relentless at hitting them. He was relentless at hitting Amazon, right? He will be relentless at going after Republicans who do not support his, quote, big, beautiful bill. And I will tell you, as a guy who's worked in the legislature, bills like this are not necessarily called a big, beautiful bill. They're usually called a big, ugly. And I'm not joking. I know that sounds funny, like it's a joke. The very bill Trump is trying to pass, has budget components, has policy components, has long-term spending components, has fixes to different programs and changes, and expanded powers for the president and different agencies, and cuts. These are the kind of things that would be thrown into what they call a big ugly. And why do you put them in a big ugly? Because they're not pretty, and a lot of things in there you don't want people to see. And I believe that sunlight is the greatest disinfectant. And I am hoping to God that this, quote, big, beautiful bill, or as I will call it, the big ugly, never, ever passes the Congress. And I think that what's going on right now is an intra-party battle about, how much debt are we going to have, how much borrowing we're going to have, how many people should be allowed to be on Medicare and Medicaid in this country. I mean, there's some real stuff going on the right. But I think that what we really need the media to do, maybe instead of determining who knew what about Biden 2 years ago, that won't ever matter to anybody ever again. Maybe they should be talking about what's in this big ugly. Maybe Jake Tapper, who, again, I have a lot of respect for as a journalist, maybe he should take that journalistic skill, which I don't have, and maybe he should go through point by point that bill and let the American people understand what's in it. Put that same kind of effort you put into, a topic that's in the past, and get it. It's a history book, I guess, at this point. You got to write history before, you forget. But maybe take some of that effort and put it into what's going on right now that's going to actually matter to the American people. Because if the Republicans could hide cuts to Medicare and Medicaid, Social Security in this big ugly they're trying to pass, we could be in for it as a country. It'll be very hard to get it back once it's out. And I am, again, I know they're out there saying that that's not what they're doing. We're not cutting Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. No, they are. And these far-right members that block the bill, don't think of them as heroes. They want those cuts. They want deeper cuts because they don't want to have to spend the money. They want to give tax cuts to the rich at the expense of the poor. They are reverse Robin Hoods. I mean, they rob from the poor to give to the rich. And they think, oh, we're not robbing from the poor. I hear their arguments. No, the rich make their money. These people are just, bleeding off the system. Well, that's not necessarily true either, especially Social Security recipients and Medicare recipients who paid in their entire life to it. You want to make the program worse? You want to make it harder to access? I mean, this is part of the problem I have. Not only do they want to make it worse, they are actively taking steps right now, to make it harder to access without Congress. I mean, this is part of the whole Doge Elon Musk thing. You notice how we're not talking about him anymore? Yeah, it was their whole plan. Make it harder to access, and we'll get some savings that way. You can't call Social Security if you got a problem anymore. You got to do it online. I'm a lot of 95-year-old widows, know how to access the internet well. I mean, you're making it harder for people to get their benefits. That's like taking their benefits away. It's like quiet quitting, right? Well, we're not getting rid of Medicare. We're just making it impossible for you to access it. And that's in the bill too. It's not just in the bill. It's some stuff that's going on right now. So let's not have top of the show talking about stuff that doesn't matter. Let's have top of the show talking about things that matter all the time. Priorities, America. We need to have our priorities in order. These, what the president's team is trying to do is disassemble the safety net that has helped this country and helped tens of millions of people, including children, veterans, people with disabilities. I mean, they are trying to take that safety net apart. And it took a long time to build it. And if we take it apart, especially given the makeup of this Congress right now, and the makeup of this country right now, it's going to take a long time to put it back together. Let's get an eye on that. I think that's important. I think that's probably the most important thing going on right now. All right. I'm going to remind you now, as I always do, to seek the truth question everyone and everything, even me. Seek the truth. I know it's out there, and I know you'll find it if you look for it. And I'll be back here again real soon to tell you the truth as I see it. I'm Chris Hahn. Thanks for joining me on the Aggressive Progressive Podcast.